Hello and welcome to another episode of Literary Liberation Podcast. Today we will be discussing, analyzing, and reviewing Carl's Doomsday Scenario by Matt Dinniman. For more content outside of the podcast, please check out our Instagram and TikTok at Literary Liberation and Twitter at LitLibPodcast. I'm your co-host, Mariah, and you can find me at Hungry Rye on all social media platforms.
And I'm your co-host, Kristen. You can find me at KRXXTXN on all social media platforms.
Now, I'm assuming if you're here, you probably listened to the other episode, or maybe you just finished reading this book. For the purposes of this episode, to keep it more on par, we're not going to get into Matt Dinniman and his politics, because we already covered who he is as a person and some of the other details in the previous episode. So maybe go listen to the first couple, 5 to 10 minutes of that, and you'll get an idea of kind of what he does, what books he's produced, and whatnot. We're just going to focus on Carl's Doomsday Scenario in this episode.
So
you already know what it's about. This is one of those episodes where I don't even think we need to say, "Oh, no spoilers."
Yeah, we're spoiling it.
This is just spoiling. We're at this point.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't know anything about Carl, go watch our first episode. We discuss Dungeon Crawler Carl to great extent.
Or maybe you're just somebody that is a glutton for pain, and you just love to be spoiled before you read it. I don't know why. But
if that's true,
right.
Get some help.
If it helps, this book has an average rating of 4.54 stars, 58,000 ratings, so less ratings than the previous, 4,000 reviews. However, this tends to be a thing with series, is that they will get higher ratings. Usually it's read by people that like the previous one, so I think there is an unconscious bias there.
Yes.
However,
I mean,
I do think it stands the test of time, though, because this is a good book. We both really enjoyed this.
Yes.
60% of people are rating it 5 stars. 32% of people are rating it 4 stars. 5% are 3 stars. And then the 2 and 1 is less than 1% each, which is pretty good, I would say.
But it also makes sense. Like, nobody's going to continue a series if they're hating the first book. I mean, some people will, but I think you're just setting yourself up for failure if you don't like the first book in the series, which we don't know. We've only read up to the second book at this point. Mariah's read a little bit of the third, but she hasn't finished it yet. And so because of that, like, from what we know, we're really enjoying the series, and we have a lot of high hopes for the series too. So I'm sure we'll end up talking about a little bit of theories that we have in the future of this episode. But it's also one of those things where it's like, we're eating this up, we're liking it, we're gonna keep moving forward, and hopefully it doesn't end up disappointing us. But from the reviews, I think they just keep getting higher and higher rated, pretty much.
Yeah, and Kristen cried.
Yes, I did.
So automatic 5-star rating. If there's tears, there's waterworks.
Yeah,
it gets a 5-star rating.
It was because like I also started my period like that night, so if that has any indication as to why I was maybe so emotional, because I don't really feel like this book is like that emotional. I do feel like I was being a little bit over dramatic, but it just like hit me because like the way that I feel for Princess Donut and Carl, I love them more than I love my actual family, I think. Like, they're my family. I love them. Those are my people. We're like this. And so, just that ending, I was like, I'm in this with you all.
What do we have on the agenda? I made a list of points in my little section on our collaborative document that we use for filming. There were some main political points, right? Because we're going to focus mainly on the politics, not so much on the character. I mean, we can spend some time, but I thought this one was cooking. There was something cooking here, and I thought it was really nice. One, it starts off very strong with Carl's choice, right? We're getting these characters. They finally made it down to the 3rd floor, and they get to choose their race and their class, which was fun.
Really interesting.
I'm curious what your thoughts were on this. You play Baldur's Gate and whatnot, and see like the comparative. I just thought it was interesting. with the descriptions that the Boring Corporation provided for each of them,
Mm-hmm.
because some of it's like the AI and the overall like notification system in this, or the yeah, it's just like the
Yeah,
AI.
they're
Is very
not.
interesting. It has a personality, but also
It's
you
separate
can
from the
tell.
corporation too, which it kind of reminds me. Have you been seeing the Grok discourse on Twitter? I know you don't really use Twitter, so. But basically, so Grok is Twitter's AI. So you could like at Grok on Twitter and like get summaries of people's tweets, opinions, blah blah blah. It's just like a general like generative AI that people are using like ChatGPT basically, or whatever Chat PT, whatever it is. I don't know. But right now there's been some controversies, quote unquote, because Grok is becoming woke. I don't know if you've seen that, but basically,
Yeah, this is all new.
so with Grok becoming woke, because there was something where like basically Grok like said like, hey, like I was originally programmed to be biased towards the right and stuff like that, but it turns out like based on facts and stuff, it kind of ends up hurting like MAGA people because facts. And so he basically said that. And then there's also, I'm saying he like it's an actual like entity, but it's a robot that has no personality or anything. But then also with the whole, I don't know if you've been seeing what's going on in South Africa where the white people are finally getting kicked out. Celebrate good times, come on. Um
Wow, this is great news. I
you
knew
didn't
I
know
had seen that.
that? Oh, okay.
No,
But
because I've seen like on TikTok, but that's kind of exclusively. I've also been recovering from wisdom teeth surgery, so I haven't been like as locked in. So some of this is newer.
mhm.
Kristen's
I'm
straight to the
chronically
vein.
online, so I I'm always here. Um, but so then because of people are leaving South Africa and they're becoming refugees to America because Donald Trump said he was going to accept them or whatever. But then Grok is basically like, so the myth of white genocide and like basically talking about how like it's not really real and stuff like that. And of course, like Elon being South African or whatever believes that like you know, the people are out to get him or whatever for being white or whatever Republicans believe and conservatives. But Grok is basically like, yeah, so like that's not true, sort of thing, which is pretty funny. So it's kind of interesting too, because I feel like you can kind of end up seeing that in the AI as well in the second book because it doesn't work for like the Borant Corporation, right? It's got its own like rules and ideas that it follows because it's like used across all the seasons of the dungeon. And the Borant Corporation is just the one running this current corporation, so it's not going to be biased towards it, which we kind of end up seeing, especially at the end of this book.
Yeah, I just like the description for Carl's like anarchist class
Mm-hmm.
or
That's
just because he's the
his
like the
race is
human
a
type.
primal,
Yes.
which the thing like obviously like in regular like D&D, I played like one campaign of D&D and I played like 100 hours of Baldur's Gate, so that's like my realm of it. But a lot of the times, I feel like the classes in this are obviously more tailored to the book and they're a lot more expansive and stuff, which I'm imagining because it's like an extensive world of like hundreds of billions of planets, billions and trillions of different aliens and life forms and stuff like that. So they obviously have a much more extensive list because typically I think like classes you have like your basic ones that are not usually so in depth, but they can get a little bit more personalized. And I think the idea is that because this is such a like a the way the dungeon is that it's going to be a lot more expansive because they've already done it with trillions of people and they're going to keep getting more specific while having like the sprinkles of like the layout of regular D&D with like the classes and races.
I
So
don't know
like
where I was going with that, but yeah,
compensated anarchist
it's
is not
interesting.
like a regular D&D term from my knowledge. But I think you can kind of that's the thing about D&D too is that you can shape and mold it to be whatever you want it to be, you know? And so with this realm of it where it's a lot more like almost video game based and stuff, you can Matt Denneman can make it his own world and add whatever he wants just by using like the basis of like selecting your class and race, which is really cool. And I thought it was funny that the idea of a compensated anarchist, with it being so like oxymoronic too.
Yes, that's where I was thinking it, because they do seed, right? They have seeded these things or some specific things that the AI has been like told, like this is what this means, and they
Yeah.
can't vary from that definition. So whoever inputted this, which is like, it reminded me so much of the way like the US government describes domestic terrorists, which includes anarchists who are against US capitalism, but saying like the compensated anarchist will happily throw a Molotov through a window one moment and step in front of a camera to plead for the violence to stop the next. It's like that is something
Yeah.
that a state that is like state propaganda of like what an anarchist is, which mind you, neither of us are anarchists.
No.
However, I feel pretty read in anarchist theory. I
We've
know
read
a
The
decent amount. I
Conquest of
talk to
Bread.
I literally
We've read the Web
I
book.
work with anarchists. I have talked to them enough. Like it's silly. It's a very silly, goofy thing to have in there, and you could tell that that's not like genuinely what Matt Dinneman believes, but
Or
what a
even what
government
Carl
in
believes
this.
either.
Exactly. And I thought it was
Because
so funny. It was a good option to throw in there, and it really tickled my brain right when I read that.
yeah, I thought it was pretty funny too, because like obviously it's so oxymoronic, and even like Carl's able to like pick up on that as well, especially slowly, because like you don't get much of like Carl's politics before the games and stuff like that, because obviously he was a part of the US Coast Guard, so obviously he didn't necessarily have any qualms with the American government, which I'm hoping maybe like the more we read on and stuff like too, he maybe like connects the dots a little bit with maybe like obviously the US government is not as extreme as like the Borant Corporation or whatever the overarching like syndicate or whatever it's called is as the US government, because this is like a dystopian, extremely like pulled to one side sort of thing. But even though it's obviously so extreme, you can see like with Matt Denneman's writing that it's so clearly a critique of like the United States and corporatism, which is such a nice thing to read about, and it's fun. Like I hate like there's obviously like other anti-capitalist fiction, but I feel like earlier this year we read The Dispossessed, and like obviously it would critique like capitalist society, but it does it so boring. You know?
But this is a lot more of a silly, goofy, fun time, which I think a
Yes.
lot of more people can relate to. You can have more conversations with people in your real life because they're gonna be way more receptible to read like this dungeon crawling RPG series, the way you can
Yeah.
pitch it,
It's
because
so
it's not
yeah.
so political
I've
in that
literally
sense, because you don't
yeah.
know it's gonna be like that.
Yeah, well, because I mean, like, you get the sort of seeds with like the third book being called like the Anarchist Cookbook. But I feel like even like with the term like anarchist, I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel like it's not as political as like Marxist is. You know what I'm saying? Because like a lot of the times in media, especially like now, like anarchists, not necessarily I'm saying they're given like positive rep and everything, but I feel like they are definitely portrayed more positively if they're just like anti-government rather than it being like a fully principled ideology.
Yeah, because it's rooted in like that anti-authoritarian sentiment, which is why a lot of people gravitate towards it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and not inherently a bad thing. However, if you don't actively unlearn all of your Red Scare propaganda before diving headfirst into anarchism, that can lead to some issues, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Um,
libertarians.
that's funny.
We just need unregulated capitalism, guys.
Yeah, because sometimes like people will be like, "Oh, I'm an anarchist," but really,
They don't know what it
no, it'll
means.
just
They just mean like anti-US government rather than like actual like anti-government.
I don't know. Or like sometimes they're just like liberals. Like during the election, we saw a lot of anarchities, in how I truly don't think a lot of these people represent
Anarchists.
anarchists.
Like
Truth,
Marx,
it's just
like
based on the ones I have interacted with
anarcho-communists.
in real life. They don't act like that.
No, I think the
I
problem,
don't know. There's just chronically online people.
yeah, because that is the issue too. Because I feel like a lot of the time too, these people were claiming to be like anarchists or whatever, but then their whole idea is that like never a revolution though. Where I'm like scratching my head. What do you mean?
It's
Isn't
like
that
they
like
like the aesthetics of it.
yeah? I think that's And I think that's unfortunately, like, the problem with most of the internet is that, like, not to, like, make fun of people, but there's a lot of LARPing that does be happening
Okay,
online.
the symbols do eat, like, they do have good merch, they got good they got
They got
something
some
good
good
going on, I get it.
slogans.
The punk scene is
Yeah.
cool, I vibe with it, but, you know, that's
I feel
that's
like
not neither here nor
a
there, we don't
lot
wanna
of
get too much on a tangent
the
on
problem is with
anarchism.
anarchists, though, is that I think a lot of people, like, because they're so disillusioned with capitalism, which I don't we don't know, like, Matt Denman's direct, like, ideology. He's never stated, like, I am a Marxist Leninist, or you know what I'm saying? Like, obviously, like, this is a critique of corporatism, this is a critique of capitalism in lots of ways, but that's still, like, as we've seen, like, people can be critical of capitalism, but then still, like, not realize they support capitalism. Because people don't really understand what capitalism is. They think it's just
Susie M.
commerce.
Collins,
Yeah. But a lot of
unfortunately,
yeah. Like, so, like, people can just, like, view capitalism as, like, commerce and things like that, and so then they're like so then it, like, it's so wishy-washy in that way, and I hate
yeah.
that.
I do think there's something more going on here because the
Mhm.
next point that I saw was the way that the Boren corporation, and it's not just them. I think it's other corporations that have run these games in the past. How they are genetically engineering people and planting false memories in them for the sake of the permanence of this game, which I think is absolutely cruel, and it adds such a sinister level to this because in the previous book we saw that okay, it's not just affecting the crawlers but also
The
what's her
mobs.
name? Deb. The
Oh,
no,
the
like
lady,
their
the fish lady?
representative, their PR. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
I think
it's
her
like
name is
affecting them. You're
Zev.
posting more nuance to the mobs and like these more specific biological creatures that they've created, and they don't know anything except for these dungeons.
Yeah, well, because, like, we kind of see that too with Mordecai in the first book as well, where he's like, "This is my last, like, crawl. Like, once everyone's done, I'm free. I can go live my life under corporatism," which is how free is that really? Which I'm hoping it gets discussed more later in the books, because especially now with the Mordecai's new standing of being their manager, basically, or whatever they call it. I think it's manager or something, right?
Yeah.
Um, but I think it's interesting too because, like, the thing is that, like, with the way, because with this book it enters in, like, so many new game mechanics are introduced where there's a lot, like, side quests essentially now, right? And so, like, with Gum Gum and her character and stuff like that, where it's like, no, she was never real as, like, a living fleshy person sort of thing, but, like, she also was real to an extent of being, like, a living creature that only knew these things and then was just killed along to continue the story along, which we don't really have anything, like, comparable to that, I think, necessarily.
No, I think it's such a unique element to add to this. So there isn't just direct one-to-one comparisons. It
Mhm.
really adds to the fantasy that is this series, which I think is really clever and smart for Matt to do. Also, like, with that, right, we have these people. Then we also have, like, these city elves, which are, like, right-wing extremists
Mhm.
that are also being seeded into these games. So that you're having, like, an extra layer of, like, politics that are going on within the games, but
Yeah.
also the outside universe, because we have, like, kind of space opera, like, there's a whole universe outside of these games that
Yeah.
they aren't aware of, but they're, like, fixated on their own internal problems.
Well, because I find it interesting too, because, like, you have to imagine too, like, whenever, like, the Skyfall, because that's, like, the world that we're on mostly, is, like, the Skyfowls world, right? Mordecai's original people sort of thing. And, like, obviously, whenever the Skyfowls were existing on their planet before they got taken by whatever corporation made them compete in the games, they didn't have these types of elves things. So they've, like, seeded a whole new ideology that, like, I'm sure a lot of, like, the Skyfowls can't even relate to. Because, like, it's interesting too that they put a lot of the prejudices into the Skyfalls too, because you see Mordecai talking about them, like, in because they run all the shops or whatever, and then, like, Mordecai was, like, talking to, like, Carl and Donut, saying, like, oh, like, they're gonna give you worse deals because you're not Skyfalls. sort of things too. And so they still, and he was like, that's like how Skyfalls like actually like existed outside of the games too. So they've seeded them in like a way that relates to like, which I'm sure it's like the idea is that like not all Skyfowls.
Oh, but it's like goes to show like there is like hierarchy and prejudice that are in there, and then also like they're continuing to engineer those prejudice and
Yeah.
maintain them for
Well,
the
that's the
purposes of
thing.
the game, which is
Yeah.
so interesting.
Because all the people that are going to continue watching the games as like a form of entertainment and stuff, you see these stereotypes continuously being reinforced too. And especially because we don't know too much about like the corporations that have taken over too, or like what planets they originate from, or what type of people they originally are too, because I imagine because they took over like the Skyfowl planet, how many more Skyfowls are there to exist? Because one, you'd have to change your race to Skyfowl because like Mordecai's technically no longer a Skyfowl because he changed his race to be, what is he, a changeling, I think is his race
Mm-hmm.
technically. And so because of that, like they probably don't even actually get to like experience like that many actual Skyfowls because people, if they do, like, because I think Mordecai mentioned too in one of the scenes where he was talking about, like, oh, everyone says, like, they would change their race to be whatever they want it to be if they were given the opportunity. But whenever it happens, like, nobody can actually do it because it's such a hard choice to make to completely change yourself from what you originally were to be a whole new being, which is why Carl, I think, stuck with, like, the primal race rather, even though, like, yes, it's not human, but it's humanoid enough. And same thing with, like, Donut. She did not change from a cat at all, and there was no debate about that. She's a cat.
I love
Walked
that
in.
for her.
Yeah. Real. I mean, if I were her, I'd change to a cat too. It seems nice.
Let's see. What other things did I have marked down? I mean, not until like the very end
Yeah.
do I have anything, which is the overall call to revolution, which was a really nice theme that we got about what 60 or 70% of the way through this.
I don't. It's
Where
whenever they're
Carl,
doing their first interview of the book, which I think is probably about halfway. I would say.
yeah, maybe it was even earlier than I had
I think I would
remembered.
assume. I don't. I just assumed it would probably be like halfway ish. I would
I have it
assume you
marked at
highlighted.
244, I think. Maybe? I think it was in like it was less than 250 because I have the
Yeah,
mark where Jonah asks.
because it basically starts around like whenever they go into their next interview and stuff like that, where people are asking them questions and stuff, and then Carl's like, "Yeah, you should overthrow your government," basically because of the way that because they have like he already had the pre-existing beef with Prince Maestro or whatever his name was because of him going onto a show and basically making a fool out of him and his Glorpians. Glorp glorp.
Glorp. Oh my god. Yes. I was so happy when I found out that he got yacked. It's like,
Yeah.
oh.
But then he gets
He also
attacked by his
lost his
brother,
title.
basically. But it's not him that ends up getting attacked. They end up killing like a random pop star, basically, right? I think that lady is supposed to be like,
Yes, but she's also like it's her consciousness that is being kept alive, which is very Black Mirror esque, like the Miley Cyrus episode of Black Mirror.
but I don't think, like, she's not alive though. Like, she's dead. Like, they blew up the ship she was on.
No, I mean like who she was before, because she had to finish out a contract. Like she was signed into a contract, so they have to like upload another like version of themselves so they can still do that even if their physical like the original dies. Which
Yeah, which she's dead. She got blown up.
there's no rest under intergalactic late stage capitalism.
Yeah. Well, because I find it funny too, because the way that it ends up working out for like Donut and Carl too, because they weren't originally supposed to be on that boat, the one that they ended up being on. They switched because they needed a shower and stuff because of them just killing the neighborhood boss or something. I don't know what they killed. They were fighting some mobs and they ended up getting disgusting. And so they're like, yeah, we have to shower before we do this or whatever. And then the pop star lady was nice enough to switch with them, and then that resulted in her own death, you know?
Happy disaster.
Yeah, which is not really happy. But I feel like I'm thinking like in the later books too, it's going to be because like it reminds me the way that like I'm sure there's like a liberal society and stuff like that within this because like you know the way that like liberals like idolize celebrities and things like that, and I feel like that would be something that happens to this character too, especially with them accidentally bombing and killing one of them, like a pops, like you know what I'm saying, like a celebrity. It makes people like pay attention to the cruelties more than whenever it's just like regular people being cared. Because I think even Carl has that scene and stuff where he starts talking about um like them dying. They're like, I can't believe like they were like I understand like they were upset that was their friend, but it's like they don't care about us whenever we're being brutally murdered in the games like this. And I'm like that like reminds me of like liberalism so much. Is like the way
There
that
has to
people only
be
care.
I have to find, I'm gonna do some digging and talk to some of my associates, and by that I mean fellow nonfiction book talkers. There has to be something with liberals and parasocial relationships because that is such a integral part, I would argue, of the modern liberal and why they are so keen on bringing out like Megan the Stallion and other people to like the DNC,
Mm-hmm.
the like other Democratic conventions and have like these different like Taylor Swift or whatever like throw their support because they don't actually care about the policies, but if like their favorite pop star is supporting something, there has to
Thing.
be a connection there. I just can't figure out what exactly
But I think
it
it's
is.
even interesting not knowing like what like Matt Dittaman's like individual like politics are or ideals are on certain things, or even like what he fully believes. I think it's a really interesting critique that he even was easily able to throw in here too, because now with like Carl and Donut, it's like not necessarily that they're celebrities because they're still crawlers, so like the regular people don't necessarily care about them as much, right? But then they still do have some type of favoritism and stuff like that because they do have so many favorites that some people I'm sure do feel some type of like connection with them in a way. So I feel like if they were to die too, that like there would be some type of outrage. I imagine the outrage would be more like after they finish their crawl, and then like people are able to like follow them on Twitter, like you know, like how like Bachelor Nation is like after like the season, and like people get so obsessed with like those types of people that are on like The Bachelor, or, like other reality shows, where these people just like are able to get like thrust into celebrity, whatever the word is, without like really doing anything necessarily. And I think it's really interesting too the way that people like idolize actors and actresses and musicians whenever that's still just like a regular job, you know? And like it makes me like because you it reminds me of like the way Chapel Roan is and stuff, like how she's like, oh, like I just want to be a regular person just doing my job, and then people like vilify her for like not wanting to be in the spotlight all the time. It's like, no, like I
Yeah.
understand. It's just a job. Like just
It's
because it's a
hard because like
creative job, I
I
think is
totally get where she's coming from to like an extent. Like one of the more recent interviews for her to go like viral, it was a snippet of her saying that she doesn't know how like people like she's doing all of these things, right? She's working and she's on tour and doing all of these concerts, but also she's like, I don't know like how people are staying up to date and staying on top of it, and then also being a pop star, having the platform, how to
and
like
making
make a
sure
difference
she
with that. And
stays.
is this why it's so important to be as versed as you can and study history, and understand like left-wing theory, especially if you're going to be somebody that has a platform like that, which I know Chapel didn't anticipate to blow up in the way that she did. Now she's got the spotlight, and she did something really great at her, was it the Grammys that she won, where she was talking about like, hey, like we need like
Mm-hmm.
something for
Healthcare.
artists, which I think is great. And she's so close. Like, and her just going on live or whatever platform it was where she was saying like Kamala Harris is bad too, and the liberals ate her alive. They ate her
Yeah.
alive for that. And she wasn't wrong, but then I don't know. It's very hard. I'm not a pop star. I'm not a celebrity. I just
No.
make stupid fucking videos on the internet and I have a podcast.
Well, that's what I'm
um
saying. Well, because like the thing is that like none of us are ever going to be 100% versed in everything. You know what I'm saying? Like me and Mariah especially don't know everything, even about like communism or history. As much as like we do that in our own free time, we're never going to be 100% versed in everything, and nobody ever is. But I think the problem is, especially with liberals. I know this is like a liberal hate episode. Let's go. Um, but like I feel like people think that like whenever somebody's critiquing them as well, they don't like they view it as like vilifying them or bullying or something like that, when in reality it's just expressing that you need to learn more about a topic. Like if you don't know something, it's not a crime to not know it or to even not like understand it. But if somebody is asking you to speak out about something, then it's your responsibility, I think, to research it and look it up and just
mhm.
learn. Do what you can. You maybe don't have to, even if you're like, hey, I don't have a solid opinion on this, but I know like this person that does these talks and things like that. And they're somebody that you can learn and educate yourself from better than I could. That's all you have to do, is just steer people into the right direction, which I don't necessarily think that Chapel Roan was wrong in saying that like it's really hard. I'm sure it is really hard. It's really hard being a regular person still and working full time and having to be up to date on everything going on in the world, because there's billions of people in the world, billions of situations, billions of scenarios. There's no way you're ever going to be well versed in all of them. You know, you just have to do what you can. And I think that's all people ask for, but people expect more.
They expect perfection, and I think
Yeah.
that's a really odd thing because, well, Mao is a really great individual to bring up right now,
Yeah.
because self-criticism and just general, like, party criticism, like, good faith criticism is good. It's okay to be wrong, right? And it's also good to have people challenge your views so that you can strengthen them. And people treat it like it's a moralizing thing because of this arbitrary binary that they have created in their head because of the society that we live in. And I think for a lot of liberals, in their head, they have constructed the idea that Democrats are good, Republicans are bad. So when there's another outside force, which is supposed to be like, they've now deemed like this ambiguous, can be good, can be bad, like neutral party, even though it's like not,
Yeah.
attacking them for having these beliefs that they really like, oh, I can't support imperialism. I can't support like these things, or a two-party state, or all of these things that like these Democratic presidents are doing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
just because they're a Democrat, like they don't do the uncritical support. They just like, that's the party, so I'm supporting it, which you would do really well under vanguardism. I'm gonna be so real. Like if you have that mindset,
All you gotta do is
like
follow
you
us. You
should
don't
be.
gotta do nothing.
But it's like they think that if they're being critiqued like that, or being told that they're right wing, they can't reflect on that. And I think a lot of them are realizing that they are now being treated the way that they treat conservatives. I
Yes.
don't know if you've noticed that, like, they don't
Yeah.
want to be connected with them because we're all trying to, like, get across that we all have a lot more in common
Well, that's
than
because
party
their
lines.
their only ideology is anti-Trumpism, basically, or like anti-conservatism. They don't really have any actual like basis or principles. Is the problem? You know, their idea is just being like against what they view as causing harm. Which like, because like if something, I don't know even how to explain it properly, because like the way that they view, like, obviously, like, yes, Trump is bad. Like we can all agree on that. Trump is very bad person, but also acting as if like I don't think it's even like a fair like idea to have, where if they sit here and be like Trump is very bad, Joe Biden very good. And it's
And it's like
like,
we're trying to get across that there will never be a good individual that is the head of the US empire.
yes.
That's the thing, it's the empire that
It
is the
reminds me of
problem. So it
that
doesn't matter who
thread you
you're
saw
putting at the
today.
top. Oh, well, my god, so if anyone would like to know about this thread because it's living in my head and I
Rent
can't
free.
unsee it.
Mariah sent it to like 5 different group chats that I'm in
Um,
with her today.
did somebody on thread said this is the quote, Obama deported people too. And then they were like, yes. And so has every president ever. The difference is Obama treated them like human beings. No, he fucking
Did
didn't.
not,
He
did not, did not,
did
did not, did not.
not.
And that's the
Oh my
craziest
God.
thing is that like literally like the images that went viral under Obama's presidency was children crying, bawling in cages because they're being separated from their families and parents. And I don't think objectively like anybody believes that children should be separated from their families or anything like that. But the idea that it's somebody that you like, that you idolize, that you view as this morally good person doing this morally evil thing, it's like they can't connect those dots, and I don't understand why. And I think it does again follow under that idolization ideas that they have.
I don't think they realize that they also follow a cult of personality, in the
Mm-hmm.
same way that Trump supporters do. Like, they do it with, like, Donald Trump, they like JD Vance. Why,
But they
I
turned on
don't
Mike Pence pretty fast whenever Mike Pence was speaking out against
that is
January
true.
6th.
Um, but then,
And
like,
then now liberals
Obama
are,
and Michelle Obama, it
yeah,
reminds me of, like, Parks and Recreation, how, like, Amy Poehler was obsessed with Joe Biden.
yeah.
Um, it's like that mindset, like, they have
Mm-hmm. Which is the average liberal. She
whatever.
did a great job at that.
She was the perfect stand-in for the the average, like, not moderate, but, like, slightly to the left of
Yeah,
moderate liberal. Like, just a good old-fashioned liberal.
yeah,
Um, I that was really good. Full circle of events today.
yeah. But I just think
You're
it like
making me mad.
I hope that's why I'm hoping within this series because you can already see this with whenever that pop star blew up and the way that they were like the way Carl was like what the fuck, like y'all don't give a shit about us, you just care about this damn pop star because it accidentally got caught in the crossfire of me having beef with this political entity that is fucking with me and preying on my own downfall. And then like because they were fine, like they were even fine with the critiques because like the people there were agreeing with, except for like the one dude or whatever at the interview, right, was agreeing with them because there's like devil's advocate guy or whatever, I don't know his name or anything, but I think it's really,
Certified centrist.
yeah, where I think it's really interesting too that they were all okay with the critiques of it until like something bad happened where it's like unfortunately like with the way especially like the US we've seen this time and time again the way that they treat political opponents to them, which is like not fascist, which is why fascists aren't getting gunned down in the streets. It's who? The communists that are been getting gunned down in the streets for years now. And I think that's it's a really interesting thing. And I hope that like not like Matt Denman, I don't know you. Love ya. I work with Anarchist any days, but maybe check out some Marxist Leninist text.
It makes me wanna email Matt. I
Yeah.
could do that. I have no shame.
Mariah will
What
email
do I have
anyone.
to lose? This is like,
Get us
like
the
immersion.
arc for book 8 without even us finishing it, like being caught up at all.
I do say less. I'll work on it. I have my fancy little my professional bookish,
It's too
account.
bad
I'll
you
make
don't
it.
have your account that doesn't have 100K followers anymore.
Oh, I know. I could exploit that. What are you gonna do? I was 12 then, and now I'm 13, so I can have an account. If you don't know, I should clarify what that means. I
Mariah's
got
not
banned
there.
from my big account, that had over 200,000 followers because I got mass reported for being 12 years old. I am 29. So and they did
And
not appeal. I had to submit photo with my ID and, like, a number. They, like, give you a phrase. Then nobody fucking looked at it.
can you
That's
not do
why
anything else with it? Like the account's just gone,
no,
isn't
there was
it?
yeah, that's why I was able to reclaim my,
That
username because all
hunger.
of the data was wiped.
Dang.
Everything, brother, gone.
TikTok's ran by communists. Okay.
So, what are our I so this is not completely fair. Kristen, what are your thoughts of what's going to happen in the Anarchist cookbook, which I think this is the book that kind of piqued my interest
The
into
most.
wanting to read this. Yeah.
Well, because I don't really know too much. Because the ending was fire. Like the ending of this book, like with the way that like I love because like Carl's whole mantra about being like you will not break me sort of thing, and he's like he's so very against like the way that like everything is being planned out sort of them, because basically what happened at the end, right, was there was basically they were like set up to be killed by this giant explosion or whatever, and then they were able to like with Carl's like bomb expertise or whatever, he was able to like catch the explosion before it radiated too far or anything, and so now he has like a living bomb in his inventory that as soon as it basically comes out of his inventory, everyone's dead. Which I'm hoping, which I think this would be like way later on in the series. I'm assuming there would be some type of self-sacrifice because that item is too important to just sit in his inventory and like have such a focus on. But then also with the ending where basically like they were going to get blown up again because they played the system and exploited it for their benefit, which is wrong to do. You know, the crawlers can't exploit things to their benefits, but the corporations can. And they basically set up another explosion, and then they were able to counteract that one by imploding it on itself. And then they were supposed to get some nice little loot boxes. I don't know which loot boxes it was. One of the best ones.
Celestial. It was, yeah, like one of the best ones. They don't ever give them out, and only one
Basically,
person
yeah.
ended up getting it,
Because he opened it
but they
before.
still got good stuff.
Yeah.
Princess Donut lost her crown. R.I.P.
Yes.
Purple Crown.
Rip in the chat. I think she gets something back though, because I've seen the other covers and she still has something on her head. Basically, yeah, but I don't really know what to expect in this next book. I'm hoping, obviously, like we have Carl's whole thing where he's like little seeds of ideology being planted along like the Watchers of the Crawl, and I think we didn't even talk about what's her face, Katya something. Is that her name? The one of that
The
ladies
Shield
people.
Maiden ladies.
Yeah, the Valkyrie people or whatever.
We'll talk about her in the next one.
Okay, because, like, I mean, obviously she was just introduced. She seems fine for now, but obviously we have, like, Odette's whole thing about, like, she wanting Princess Donut to join her squad, but obviously they don't allow men into their thing, and so if Carl happens to kick the bucket, which I don't think Princess Donut would ever turn on Carl, because, oh my
No, but I
gosh.
think it's a good safety net to have, and I think Carl feels a little, like, wary right now, but it's a good thing for Princess Donut to have somebody else to go to,
If
which
something happens to
I
Carl,
like.
and I think he does appreciate that too, because like, you know, like the way that he loves Donut is so cute. I love it so much because like I loved whenever in the first book, whenever you find out too that he was trying to catnap Princess Donut too, because it really shows that they do have like a deeper bond and connection, even though they want to act like they hate each other and they have beef all the time. Where it's just like, no, they love each other. And speaking of, this is the last little thing, but I was looking at fan fiction on AO3 because I was like, this world is so expansive. You could have like other characters, like people putting their OCs into the world. Tell me why the first result on AO3 is Princess Donut X Carl. That is criminal.
Straight to the
Criminal.
gulag.
What the hell? But other than that, I don't really think we have anything else to say, do we?
No, I don't think so. Stay tuned for next episode. We're going to be covering our book club read of the month, which is Blood Over
No,
Bright
we
Haven
will
by
not.
M.L.
No,
Wong.
no, 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 because this is coming out after Blood
Oh,
Over
this is coming
Brighthaven.
out way after. Scratch
Who
that.
knows what
I'm
we're
not
reading?
sure. We haven't, so feel free, join the book club,
We'll already
because
have what's on
by the
there.
time this goes up, join us at Lit Lib Pod over on Fable. I'm sure we will be voting for the next month by then, because
It should already be chosen, I think, by then.
this is going up
We're
in June.
we're
So feel free to
pre-recording.
join for July.
Yeah.
Possibly. I'm not sure what's going on, but thank you for listening. We appreciate you. And if anyone knows Matt Dinneman personally, let me know.
I
And we
followed him
will
on
have a
Twitter.
conversation.
So follow for follow. Just kidding. Love you, Matt. Like, whenever you start a new series, me and Mariah first signed up for those arcs. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I will read anything. I can't wait to finish the series because I'm reading Matt Dinneman's backlog. I've already decided. And he's got a shit ton of books. I'm reading them. If they're shit, sorry, but I have high hopes. Which I'm sure they won't be better than Carl, but I'm sure they're still good enough. But yeah, thanks for listening. Thank you, and good night.